Yeah, we are back with another one. Ring Ropes, Turnbuckle Podcast. It's your boys, the trio champions of podcasting. We hold the belts over here. Escott Bars. We got the dynamic Darkwing Dub and the historian himself, Jay Styles. Back with another one. Man, this is going to be a real controversial topic because we new to the scene as far as like, you know, trio podcasting. We new to the scene. So it's like tackling something like this, a lot of the newbies wouldn't want to even touch this topic right here. But we mature enough to know how to navigate. You know what I'm saying? So JACOB FATU in the new song with his unc, Rakishi. The song is called Hello. Link will be in the description. And he said the N-word. Ooh. He said the N-word. What's your thoughts on this? Anyone of y'all could go.
Go ahead, Dub.
Well, I don't like it. I don't like it because I don't say the word. With me not saying the word, I don't expect to hear it from anybody else. I mean, I get onto my friends that say it all the time about it. You know, like if I don't say the word, what makes you think I want you to say the word? I'm talking about guys that look like us. If I don't say the word, what makes you think I want you saying the word? And the same thing goes for Fatu, JACOB Fatu. Like, I don't like it. I don't like it. I think that word should be erased and thrown away and never used again.
You know what? I don't see nothing wrong with your point of view, Dub, because like I said before, I don't use the word neither. And we've talked about this off camera. I don't use the word neither. I haven't used the word in a very long time. Um, what I will say is that I'm not really offended by him using it. You know what I'm saying? And that's only because I understand the psyche. You know, I understand the environment he comes from, one, and two, there's no real clinical evidence, or I'm not even going to say clinical, there's no real evidence, historical evidence, that's the proper word. There's no real historical evidence out there that says that Polynesians are not black. Now, mind you, there is stuff you could Google and say that you see different opinions, you see different historical things. The funny thing about it is that Asians are more connected to us than Polynesians are. And myself, and Jay spoke about that. The Asian community is more connected to us than the Polynesians are, which I found very, slightly weird because when I look at the Polynesian community, I see a lot of similarities in my community as far as me being Nigerian. You know what I'm saying? I see a lot of similarities from the food, from the dancing. You know what I'm saying? I see a lot of similarities. So that's why I'm not really truly upset. You know what I mean? Do I think he should have said it? Being where he's at right now with his WWE career, probably not. You know what I'm saying? You're still new to the WWE universe. They have not paid attention to your story outside of that. And that's not his fault. That's the fans' fault because they gravitated to him so fast without doing a background check. Because if they did a background check, I do feel a lot of them would see his point of view. You understand what I'm saying? Because if you watched him in MLW, if you watched him in these other promotions, the way he is was way more dramatic. Like there was more vindictiveness in his voice than what it is right now. WWE is really watered. I'm not saying they watered down his wrestling. They watered down his promos, the way he speaks, the way he does everything. You know, so if you see anything with him outside of WWE, then you will understand where he's at as far as himself. Do that still mean that I feel like he should have said it? No, I don't think he should have. But he said it, you know. Did he say it in a disrespectful manner? No, he didn't. You know, he said it typical rap lyrics, whatnot. You know, some of my favorite rappers use the word, you know what I'm saying? But I don't, you know? And, you know, it's just like, you know, like I said, you know, like the Polynesian community is very, very much similar to the African community. You know what I'm saying? There's a lot of similarities there, you know. So I'm not going to go and be like, you know, this quote unquote woke keyboard warrior and start talking all crazy and stuff like that, because that's what a lot of them are doing right now. They're talking all crazy and they're not using mature minds. And half of the people that are criticizing him for saying the word, they say the N word in every single sentence. You know what I'm saying? They say the N word in every single sentence. Their vocabulary is shot. You know what I'm saying? Some of them, the way they talk, they sound like they rapping every single bar. They sound like they rapping. You know, so it's just weird to me, you know, how our community's trying to gatekeep a word that was used to oppress us. You know what I'm saying? It's just really weird to me, you know, and that's another reason why I'm not mad, because I'm like, yo, I don't use the word anyway, you know, and the word doesn't hold no merit over me. You know what I mean? And I've been in the most vile situations over the course of time. I've lived through some experiences. I could tell some stories, and it doesn't hold no merit over me. So at the end of the day, and that doesn't mean that if I see like a Caucasian person say I won't get upset, that's different. You know what I'm saying? But for him being who he is, being that, and I'm gonna take a quote. I'm gonna take a quote from somebody that said this on the internet. If himself and a bunch of other black folk was to walk inside of a store, order everything, and then the cops come in there, they're gonna look at all three individuals as black. They're not going to say he's Polynesian. They're not going to say, oh, he's black and he's black. They're going to say all three is black. Now you think about that. And and the only thing that I really get annoyed with this causes division between cultures. This causes division. You know, if you look on the application, what does it say on the application when you're filling out an application? What is all the things that it has listed on the application? One of y'all, I know one of y'all can answer it. I know it, but I know one of y'all can answer it. What does it say?
White, you got white, Asian, black, Hispanic, non-Hispanic, 2 or more races.
Exactly, right? So they don't say Polynesian. They say non-black. You know what I mean? Now, maybe he falls under that category, but we don't know that. Like I said, there's no true cultural evidence, because when you go talk to other folks, other Polynesian folks, one might say, "Oh yeah, we're connected to our African brothers and sisters," and then you'll have another one that say, "No, we're not." And if you look on Google basically says the same thing. So really, you know what I mean? Really, who knows what the truth is? But at the end of the day, man, like, I'm not trying to gatekeep no word that was used to oppress us, and I'm not really interested in holding some word ransom because, oh yeah, we took the word back so we could use it to our discretion. Yeah, use it to your discretion. You took the word back, whatever. Who cares? It just doesn't. Like I said, it doesn't hold no merit over me. I don't really care for the word. I don't use the word. I haven't used the word in a very long time, and I'm trying to continue to train myself on not using the word at all. Just like I'm training myself on how not to curse anymore. You know what I'm saying? Like, you know. Any thoughts on that? Yo, Doug gave the face.
Yeah.
Why you gave the face, yo?
I know, I know, I know, I know.
It's one thing.
I'm
It's
with you
one
on
thing
that.
not to say the N word, but cussing, bro. That's like that's bedded deep down in my DNA, especially from my time in the army. That's like embedded deep.
Yeah, yeah.
Hey, as far as profanity, you know, living here in DC, with how these folks drive, you can't help but to curse behind the wheel, dog. I'm gonna call a spade on that one. You can't help but to curse, you know. But yeah, I've said off camera how I felt. I'm gonna say it again on camera. Not offended. It doesn't bother me. It's lurid. I feel like people are trying to stir the pot and employ a attempt to censor someone's right to expression. Music is a form of art, first and foremost. You cannot censor music in the United States. You can't. You can't censor the right to express yourself lyrically based on protection of the First Amendment right of freedom of speech. Secondly, like you and I've said, Bar, there's no historical nor scientific data that implicate whether or not they that Samoans, American Samoans, or from the island Samoa, are or not tied into African descent based on DNA because it hasn't been done. Okay, doesn't mean it's not out there. It just hasn't been done. Now, where does it come? Where does it fall back in terms of JACOB FATU and the use of the lyrics? Well, here's the thing. What is his skin tone? What is his natural hair, which is braided? His facial features, all that reflects and represents somewhere along the line of an African heritage. For him to utilize the word in an expressive art form is not wrong. I don't necessarily saying I'm condoning it or I don't appreciate it. It just doesn't personally bother me. I'm not bothered by it. He has a right to express himself openly and freely as he chooses. He's not threatening anybody by using a word. He's not saying he's going to inflict anybody harm by using a word and applying it to someone. He's just expressing himself.
So,
Now, have I used the word personally? Yeah, among family, in house. Do I use the word out in public? No, but I do
so,
use the word in house wise.
so what? So, all right. So, I'm gonna ask you guys both this question. So, what do you say to folks that are how do I say this? What do you say to folks that are literally condemning him but don't even know his backstory? What do you say to those folks? Because he has a backstory. The dude had a rough life, and not for nothing, probably a good majority of his friends are probably black. Do you know what I'm saying? Now, like I said, this is not me saying that gives him merit to go use the word. I'm just saying that a good majority of his friends, probably even family, are probably of color. You know what I'm saying?
Do your due diligence. Do your personal vetting if you can. As much information that's on the public record about him, not just related to wrestling. Find out. Like his cousin had been more open about his own personal life being, I guess you could say dealer is a felon. I guess you could say that. Because he had a probationary officer and he paid off his probationary fine. So, Jacob served some time, as a teenager into adulthood, early adulthood, for a serious offense.
Yep.
And you know that's also very well. If you really pay attention deep into the lyrics, hello, he is reflecting on his time being incarcerated as a young adult too.
Yeah.
Um, so the backstory, due diligence, if you will, is appropriate. You can't I don't want to be biblical, guys, but if we any of us know any part of the Bible, especially the one in the New Testament, let he who commits no sin throw the first stone. So how
Yeah.
you gonna throw a stone at somebody if how you gonna throw a stone at a man when you probably said it yourself one time or another?
We spoke about that too. You know, a lot of these folks, man, their vocabulary is embedded with that word. You know, their vocabulary is embedded with that word. Like I said, man, it really don't make no difference to me. You know, whether it was said or said, wasn't said, whatever. It don't make no difference to me. It's just the same that we're trying to gatekeep a word that was used to oppress us. That's just that's just my main thing. Why are we trying to gatekeep this word? You know, and like I feel like we as a culture need to get better. You know, it starts with us. I believe that's what you said, Dub. It starts with us. If we're telling this man that it's not appropriate to use this word, it doesn't matter what shade of skin tone you got, it's not appropriate to use this word, then we gotta take full responsibility and stop using the word ourselves. You know, and I believe that's a stone cold hard fact. What you think, Dub?
Well, I was thinking. um, there are so many content creators out there, and y'all know who I'm talking about. I'll leave it at that. There's a few of them though, but every other word out of their mouth is that word. I don't like it. I've already made that clear to begin with. I don't like it. I just like you, bars. I had to train myself not to use that word. Why did I do that? Because I heard stories of the things that my grandmother and my grandfather went through back in the 30s, 40s, 50s, and 60s and 70s. I heard those stories. When I started hearing those stories, I made it a point to be like, you know what? I'm not saying that word anymore. That is distasteful, disgraceful to the stuff that my grandparents went through on both sides because I knew my father's parents too. So on both sides, you know. So I don't want to disgrace them by using a word that was used when they were growing up into adulthood to put them down into the dirt. Why would I want to continue to do that? Right?
Mm-hmm.
Number two, these same people that are mad at Jacob now, I guarantee you they thought it was funny when Vince McMahon did it.
And what did I say? What did I say? What did I say?
You did say
So
we literally talked about this off camera and on Bars Wrestling Media side. And it's funny you mentioned that, Dub, because a lot of fans they grew up during the Federation era. They probably don't remember the time on Saturday Night Main Event where Bad News Brown confronted Vince McMahon and they muted the NBC literally muted the mic. But Vince McMahon was foaming at the mouth and calling him the N word on national TV.
mm-hmm.
And guess the day after, what media outlet ran a full story on it? His main rival back in the day, Ted Turner, CNN, at Headlines News. But there was no ramification from the Federation audience before now WWE.
There you have it. I'm look.
And it kills me. We say that it kills me, right? But there are so many people out there that are mad at Booker T about this situation. And my whole deal is, okay, there's so many different variables that go into that, right? Did he know that Vince was going to say that? We don't know.
Mhm.
Okay. And if he knew, why allow it to happen? Okay. Okay. At that point, okay, I understand the madness at Booker T, right? But let's say that he didn't know. Something's going on in the back.
Go, continue.
Okay. Okay. It's gone.
Mhm.
Um, but let's say he didn't know and Vincent Mann said it, right? Who's to say that Booker T didn't put him in his place when the show went to commercial or whatever? Who's to say that didn't happen, right? So I don't understand the amount of hatred that Booker T gets because of that part. I understand the rest of it that goes on with him and NXT and Stephanie and all that other. I get that, but as far as doing that, I don't understand the hate that he gets these days because we don't know the ins and outs as to how that came apart. Did he or did he not know? Did he or did he not address it afterwards? Because you notice after that happened, and I heard somebody else say this. After that happened, Vince didn't try it anymore. So the
That's a good
people
point you
that
making.
no,
Go
I
ahead,
was just,
continue. Okay.
so the people that are mad at JACOB FATU over this, am I personally mad? No, I'm just saying I don't like the word. People that are actually mad about this, you got one thing to do. You have to look in the mirror and be like, what can I personally do to help rectify the situation? If you're one of them people that use that word on a daily, it's like you said, your vocabulary is shot because of that word, bars, then you need to look in the mirror and be like, okay, it starts with me.
And for that note, I'm gonna give it this right here. Yeah,
I,
there you have it.
I,
There you have it. Go ahead.
I'm gonna say I'm gonna co-tell what Dub just said, particularly about the Booker T incident. Yeah, to this day, we don't know who the worker will shoot. We just don't. The only people who will know behind the scenes are probably at that time Bruce Prichard, Michael P.F. Hayes, um, maybe if Shane was a backstage producer, those people, they will be the ones who will really know going into it what was it supposed to be a shoot or whether it was a work, you know. Um, and if it was a shoot, you have no right to be offended because they did both parties did their job. Now, if it was a work, and again, to your point, Doug, Mr. McClain didn't use that word on TV ever again. So he must have been confronted by several wrestlers about it back in the locker room area or in his office, in the arena which it took place in. So, I mean, at the end of now, if you're saying maybe he should have made a public apology to Booker T and to the wrestling fans all over the world, it wasn't going to happen. It's just not who Vince McMahon is. Now he could have drafted a statement if it legitimately was a work. If it was legitimately was a work, he could have issued. They could have had Linda McMahon, who was the president and the PR person at the time, compose a letter on behalf of all of WWE, issuing a public apology. But because that didn't happen, you got to look at it. Maybe it was the shoot. And the reason why Booker didn't do anything about it because he was doing his job.
So
That's all I got to say in regards to that part.
okay. So I want to say this before we close out, right? So Does anybody know if WWE is punishing Jacob for this issue? Does anybody know that?
I haven't read anything. I haven't seen anything on YouTube related from like other podcasts, well established podcasts. I haven't even heard anything from Busted Open Radio about this.
Well,
So
I don't think Busted Open or any of those high profile mainstream podcasts are even going to talk about this. I mean, I've seen a few high profile podcasts, make reference to it, but they're not doing those shows like we doing it. And the main reason why is that they're not trying to receive no backlash neither, because they shook. You know what I'm saying? We have every right to talk about it because we're black. You know what I mean? It's just the way it is. Like, they're shook. And don't get me wrong, I've seen a few people here and there that are non-black that have spoke on topics like this, but they tread very lightly. Very, very lightly. You know what I'm saying? They tread super light, you know? So, I mean, at the end of the day, however you feel about it is to your discretion. You know what I mean? If you feel offended, you should. If you don't feel offended, you know what I mean? It's really up to the person that is hearing this. It's really up to the person, and it's really up to the maturity level wise. I got children. I don't want none of my kids saying the N word. If I'm out there seeing the N word, my this and that, that's what my children is going to start adapting to, and they're going to repeat it. And honestly speaking, I don't want them saying the word. Just like I don't want them cursing either. You know what I mean? There's just certain things that I'm trying to stand on to be a better example. You know what I'm saying? So whether folks think it's corny or not, it's really on you. Like, it is what it is. I don't care. You know.
yeah.
Any closing
Because
remarks?
at the end of the day, you can't live in Jacob Fatu's shoes. Jacob Fatu can't live in your shoes. Jacob Fatu lives as a wrestler, as a performer. He lives in a different world than us. If you're going to hold him to a higher standard, so be it. But on a personal life, outside of the ring, how he condones and conducts his business, that's his prerogative. Using the N word and such, again, in an art form, not in a conversation, not directly implicating anybody to hurt their feelings, to put somebody down, that's his choice in how he wanted the lyrics to do. Because we don't know who these were pre-written lyrics. We don't know he was freestyling with his uncle. We don't know what went on in the studio recording this. So it's a lot of things people need to look at before casting judgment. Because if you're a content creator that also does music like our co-host Bars does, before he goes out there, even if he freestyles, he's thinking before he speaks. If he writes his lyrics, I'm pretty sure he's had drafts of what he wants his bars to be before he gets on the microphone and says it. So I'm pretty sure in Jacob Fatu's defense, he probably has done the same thing. So it's time we start giving, I'm not saying a free pass to Jacob Fatu or someone in the wrestling industry, giving them a free pass. I'm not saying that. I'm saying stop and think for a moment before casting judgment and think whether or not how much time they spent thinking about what they were going to do off camera for the sake of entertainment value as another source of income in their life before you try to cast stones at them. That's all I got to say about that.
What's your closing thoughts, Dub?
Said it once, I've said it twice, I've said it to you guys off air. At the end of the day, it starts with us. It starts with me, it starts with Jay, it starts with you, Bars. We've all made except for Jay wants to use it in the privacy of his own home. I'm kidding. I'm kidding. But no, like, we have to make the effort to be like, you know what? it's a nasty word. I'm not going to use it. And, for the most part, we've done that. You know, as far as people beating up JACOB FATU over the use of the words, I've said it once, I've said it twice, I'm going to say it again. Look at yourself in the mirror. If you're one of those people that use that word every single day, like Barr said, your vocabulary is shot because that's the only word you know. You should probably learn to stop using the word yourself before you start casting stones onto a celebrity. That's pretty much what he is now. He's a celebrity,
Mm-hmm.
you know? So at the end of the day, it starts right here. Just like you're teaching your kids that we're not doing that here. We're not doing that here. I'm teaching mine. No, we're not doing that here. Niece and nephews, we're not doing that here.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I can't say it enough. Think about, like I did, think about the people that came before you and what that word meant to them. And then ask yourself, should I be saying that?
Just like the background, you heard that in the background. I said no. Did you hear that? That young man said no. You should not be saying it.
He showed did.
Exactly.
I didn't know y'all picked that up. He showed did say no.
Yeah, man. But my final closing thoughts on this, man. To what Dub just said, I got nieces and nephews. Of course, we teach them. My youngest nieces and nephews, we teach them. All my older nieces and nephews, they're in their 30s and 40s. So they have kids, and of course they teach their kids not to say. So it but again, when I say in the house, I mean particularly between my brother and I, my cousin, my male cousin. We say it's just how we communicate with one another. But we know the ramification, the history of the word, because we are all military brats, or some of my
Old.
cousins have actually served in the military. I'm a military brat. My dad served in the Air Force before I was born, but I'm still a military brat. So I understand that. And to your point, Doug, yeah, I should look at it and disgrace my family heritage on both sides of the family. However, because my family on my mother's side grew up in the north, way up north in New England, they wasn't exposed to that. So because they wasn't exposed to that, um, it's kind of hard not to ignore it, but not to also see it. So, but my father's side grew up down in Richmond, so they experienced that to a degree. At least some of my family members down there did, not all of them. So I get everything that you said, and I'm in agreement with what you said on a final note. So can I do better? Will I do better? Of course. But again, it's like trying to break a generational curse. It's really not a curse because we're not. It's like in your family, guys. You have a secret language with your male counterpart, cousins or uncles or brothers. If you have brothers, that's how you speak to one another. But you wouldn't speak out in the street like that to somebody you don't know. So I'm not saying it's right or wrong. Internally, you have to use your discretion. But yeah, I can work on it, Dub. To be honest with you, I can work on it, but it's going to take time.
Let me preface this by saying both sets of my grandparents are from deep woods, Texas, and Louisiana.
Mm-hmm.
So there's that. So that they dealt with a lot, and that's why I'm speaking for myself. Like, hey, I mean, I don't know what you went through, Bars. I don't know what your family went through, Jay. I don't know what you and your family went through. I'm speaking for myself. That's the main reason why I stopped using the word is because I started hearing stories about what both sets of my grandparents went through in the little bitty town that I'm from in East Texas. You know what I mean? So there's that.
Yeah, like I said, I have I have a lot of stories I could, dabble into. I know my mother, she went through a lot when it came to that word. I know on my father's side, being that on my father's side, a lot of my family are from the deep south. So, you know, I get it, But, even without hearing those stories, I kind of just never I kind of never was like acclimated to the word like that. I never really was. I can't quite remember how many times I used that word even as a kid. And I probably used it a lot as a kid. And I probably even used it a lot as a young adult. But as I got older, I just started seeing myself, really just, drawing away from the word and just trying to be more mature. But at the end of the day, it's to your discretion. However you feel, that's on you. But, what we saying over here is that, point the finger at yourself. That's just what it is. It starts with you. If you want that man to stop saying what he's saying, then it starts with you. And then you can have a direct dialogue with the brother and tell the brother, look, if you're gonna be around me, then you can't be flipping and flapping that word, You know what I'm saying? That's all I'm got to say about that. Otherwise than that, this Friday, 9:30 Eastern Standard Time, we got our Shea Wrestling's own Diego Hill will be on the podcast with us. I suggest you tune in. Tune in. You have been warned. This Friday.
Where are we at, by the way? Where are we at, by the way, with our overall subscription, guys? I know last time we checked, we're over 30.
Yeah, well, last time I looked, it was at 28. So I think I don't know. Maybe we lost. Maybe we lost 2.
Dub says checking right now.
Oh, he's checking. We at 30.
30.
Okay, all right. So last time I checked, we was at 30. We was at 28. So now we at 30. Okay. So listen,
so
we
need 20 more. We need 20 more subscribers, guys. So those of you who've been following us from day one, after we mentioned it over on the TikTok side, continue to share to your friends. Continue to share to other people in the internet wrestling community. We need to get the minimum of 50. We are over the halfway point. 20 more will do it. If we can get to 20 before Friday, you can watch this interview live on YouTube. We will be allowed. Google, YouTube will send us a notification to our email saying that we officially now can go live, which means we can also start creating a additional subscription for more premium content that will be pre-recorded and that you can watch and pay for monthly once we reach that goal of 50 minimum subscribers.
So do what the man said and subscribe to the channel. Or we coming for you. We coming for you.
You gotta finish it.
We coming for you. Nah. I see what you try to do. I see. Yeah. Anyway, we'll see you guys on Friday. Salute to y'all. Appreciate y'all. Ring Ropes.
This has been an exclusive 3-man podcast in related topic on the controversies surrounding JACOB FATU.
Deuces.